Good morning, everyone. Hello from Flagstaff, Arizona. My name is John McDermott, and I work for the Institute for Human Development in Arizona, in Flagstaff, Arizona. We are one of two university centers for excellence in developmental disabilities in Arizona. We are located on Northern Arizona University's campus. Please feel free to open the link in the chat pod and bookmark our website. I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. This is a listen-only webinar. If you have any questions, please utilize the Q&A pod at the lower center of your screen. We will address select questions at the end of the presentation. Towards the top of some of the pods, you will see an icon with 4 arrows. This will allow for a full screen mode on your device or computer for that particular pod. Also, to the lower left of your screen, you'll see a files pod. These are files that you can download for reference. If you have any questions, please contact ihd@nau.edu, and I'll place that in the chat pod as well. And finally, we'll be recording the webinar today to archive on the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council's website, ADDPC, and our IHD YouTube channel. That being said, we want to welcome you to How to Save Money with Arizona Able Accounts webinar brought to you by IHD and ADDPC. I'm going to hand this over to Sarah Roof from the council.
Good morning, everyone. This is Sarah Roof. Thank you, John, for that introduction. We are so excited to host and be a part of today's webinar. We know it's been highly anticipated. We are so excited. AZ Able is launching on Monday, and I am especially appreciative to our presenters who have stepped in to provide information today. We are going to be hearing from Juliana Christ. Juliana is the director of the Stable Account Program. As some of you may know, that is Ohio's Able Account initiative, and the state of Arizona has contracted with Ohio to operate the AZ Able program. We also have Thomas Hatch, who is the operations manager for Stable, joining us today, and I just want to extend a very warm welcome to both of them and to you all. I hope you all have questions that you have been thinking about. As John said, we will have time to answer some of those, and we are very, very hopeful about the future and the amazing financial tool and services this is going to allow for so many Arizona residents. So on behalf of the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, Juliana, I will hand things over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here with all of you guys. As Sarah mentioned, let me just take a minute and introduce myself. I am the director for Stable Accounts, which is Ohio's National ABLE program. 2 years ago, we were the first state to launch an ABLE initiative. And since then, we have been reached out to by a number of wonderful states with great advocates, Arizona being one of those, to partner with them and to help bring an ABLE program to their state. So that's kind of our role in the background. We've been working with the Arizona Department of Economic Security and other agencies in your state to help bring AZ ABLE to launch. So what I'm going to do today is take you through what the program looks like. Please feel free to throw questions in the Q&A box, and then at the end we'll go through those. And at any time afterwards, if you still have questions, feel free to reach out. We'll give you some contact information at the end if things, as things come up. And then what we're hopeful for is that you guys will all kind of be aware of the Monday launch. So right now, what you're seeing on your screen, there's a URL on there, az-able.com. This is the AZ Able website. You can actually go to that today, and just wait until Monday if you're interested in actually signing up for an account. Wait till Monday's launch, but you can go to the website today, get all the information you need, look over our FAQs, and kind of prepare for what it would look like for you to sign up for one of these accounts. So let me go ahead and dig in. All right, so let's start with some background. What is ABLE in general? Many of you might be familiar with this. ABLE is actually a federal law that Congress passed in 2014. It was called the ABLE Act. What the ABLE Act did is it created these investment accounts for people with disabilities. These accounts have numerous benefits, but the biggest thing is that assets, money that you saved into an ABLE account is not a countable resource. So what that means is the money that you have in there does not affect your eligibility for any kind of means tested program. That includes any kind of program administered by the state of Arizona. It also includes federal programs like SSI, Medicaid, HUD, other types of means tested benefits agencies and the things that they administer. So what are the accounts structurally? It's kind of a hybrid of a bunch of different banking products that are out there right now. The accounts were actually modeled after 529 college savings accounts. If any of you are familiar with those, they allow for long-term investing. But what our accounts do is they give you the ability to utilize this investment account almost more like a checking account. You can take out money whenever you need. We have a debit card attached. So for people who are wanting more day-to-day spending, it allows you that freedom. And then, of course, they also bring in some of the benefits of special needs trusts, which is that these accounts act like an asset shield. So the money that you save is not going to count against you. It's not going to affect your Medicaid, your SSI, or any of your other benefits. So what is AZ-ABLE specifically? AZ-ABLE is Arizona's state ABLE plan. So it is offered through a partnership with my office, the Ohio Treasurer's Office. This is only open to Arizona residents, and it is in your state, it's going to be administered by the Department of Economic Security. The launch date, as we mentioned, is going to be Monday, officially March 5th. So let me talking about some of the big benefits of these accounts. The number one thing that we always like to talk about is how this is really a new tool for financial independence for people with disabilities. So many of our account holders, before this program, they couldn't have bank accounts in their name, they couldn't have investments, they couldn't think about long-term financial stability because of asset limits in disability benefits programs. And if they had assets, they sometimes couldn't have those assets in their own name. So this program changes all of that. It lets people actually have money in their own name that they can spend with a caregiver or on their own. It gives them that independence that so many other people just take for granted. So the account actually is going to be titled to the person with a disability, but you can always have a parent or a guardian helping you administer the account. I mentioned earlier that these accounts dramatically increase the ability for people to save. So before, you had to worry about not going over $2,000 every month, right? Or risking loss of your benefits. Now, you don't have to worry about that. You could have $10,000 in your ABLE account. You could have $20,000 in your ABLE account and still keep your SSI, your Medicaid, or your other benefits. It also provides investment opportunities for people who are thinking about maybe what happens when mom or dad is no longer around. They're thinking for the long term. This allows people to finally start putting away money for, a lot of money for future. The earnings on these accounts are all tax-free, so you don't have to worry about paying taxes on your interest, and it's going to be tax-free when you take it out as well. So there are some additional tax benefits to these accounts. So let's talk about eligibility. Who can use an Arizona ABLE account? So just so you know off the bat, you can only have one Arizona ABLE account. You actually can only have one ABLE account across the country. So if there are people out there who had maybe opened an ABLE account in another state while you waited for Arizona's program to launch, you probably want to think about moving your account over to the Arizona ABLE program now, because you can only have one account open at any time. Some of the criteria, obviously you have to have a disability. We do have an age cutoff in this program. So your disability, in order to be eligible for the program, your disability had to start before the age of 26. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that you have to be diagnosed before age 26, anything like that. All that it means is that the symptoms of your disability had to start presenting before you turned 26. So if you can say that, it doesn't matter if you didn't see a doctor until you were 30. It doesn't matter if you're 50 when you open the account. It doesn't matter if you didn't start receiving SSI until you were 40. All that matters is when your symptoms started showing. You have to be an Arizona resident, so this is not open to people outside of the state of Arizona. And after that, you have to meet one of the 3 criteria listed here on the website. If you are already eligible for SSI or SSDI, great, that's easy, you're automatically eligible. Or if you have a condition listed on the Social Security Administration's list of compassionate allowances conditions. Those are things, there's a lot of terminal conditions, some types of cancers or other illnesses on there. If your condition shows up on there, you're also automatically eligible. If you don't meet one of those criteria, you can self-certify your condition. So we'll talk about that. Self-certification. What does this mean? So if you don't meet one of those automatic qualifier categories, you can still self-certify that you are eligible for an ABLE account. What does that self-certification look like? Basically, you're going to need a doctor's note or diagnosis that you have a condition that causes marked and severe functional limitations. So again, what does that kind of mean in layman's terms? If you took your loved one or yourself, if their disability, if you compare them with someone of their same age group, if their disability just results in them not having the same kind of day-to-day functionality that someone of their same peer group has, then those types of conditions will qualify as causing marked and severe functional limitations. If you're interested in seeing some of the, what these conditions would be, you can Google the Social Security Administration's Blue Book. There is a whole listing of things that count as having marked and severe functional limitations. So that could be everything from autism, Down syndrome, CP, different types of physical disabilities, respiratory disabilities, developmental disabilities, mental illnesses. There's a lot of things that will qualify in this category. You also have to certify that it's not a temporary condition. So it has to be something that has either lasted already for a year or it's going to last for a year. So if you have a child that was just born with a disability, maybe the child is only 6 months old, you can still sign them up for an AZ-ABLE account, as long as it's not some temporary condition. If it's a lifelong thing that child will have, you can go ahead and sign them up because it's going to be lasting for a long time. We do ask for some information about the diagnosis, just the physician's name, their address, the date that you were actually diagnosed. But this is a paperless process, so you don't actually have to send anything in to us. But we do ask that you keep it on hand, just in case there's ever kind of a check in the future. You want to be able to prove your eligibility, but you don't have to send it in when you actually enroll in the account. Okay, so what does enrollment look like? Everything is done online. So this is not a bank account where you would go into a bank, meet with a teller, and open an account. You will go on to az-able.com. You can sign up through our open an account link. It's very quick. It takes 20 minutes or less. It's just $50 to get your account opened. The person with a disability, who we call the beneficiary, can do that themselves, him or herself. Or if it's a minor or someone under guardianship or who doesn't feel comfortable managing their own finances, you can have an authorized legal representative open the account and manage the account for you. There are some restrictions on who can be an authorized legal representative. The federal law requires that those people can only be the individual's parent, their legal guardian, or someone that has a power of attorney. If you need help with any of that, please let us know. We do have power of attorney forms on the AZ-ABLE website that you can download and sign if that's something that you will need. Okay, so I'm going to switch a little bit. After you get your account open, we'll talk about how you get money in and out of it. So funding the account. Contributions we can accept via an electronic transfer from maybe an existing checking or savings account that you have, or you can mail us in a check. There is a $15,000 contribution limit every year, so you can only put up to that amount in your account every tax year. But there was a new law that just passed that allows individuals who are employed to actually contribute some of their own income into the account. So if you're an individual with a disability and you are working in 2018, you can actually contribute up to an additional $12,060 into your Able AZ account for 2018. There is a maximum lifetime limit of $462,000 in these accounts. So all that happens is if your balance is $462,000, you are not allowed to make any future contributions at that point. But you can spend down your balance. So let's say you maybe use some of that to buy a car, and your balance goes down to $440,000. You can resume contributions at that time. You guys will never have to worry about keeping track of your contributions because our system will do that for you. So we won't let you accidentally contribute too much to the accounts because there can be some tax ramifications for that. So don't worry, we do all that for you. We will reject any contributions that would accidentally put you over the limits. A really neat feature that we have for getting money into your account is an e-gift feature. So this is kind of similar if you guys are familiar with things like GoFundMe or other social media fundraising platforms. What this allows you to do is actually create an e-gift in your online AZ Able account. And you can import all the email addresses of friends and family, and you can actually send them out a link asking them, say it's your birthday or it's a holiday. You can ask them to contribute to your account. This is a great way for people like aunts and uncles and grandparents who a lot of them have been told all their life, hey, whatever you do for Susie's birthday, don't send her any money because it could affect her benefits. This is a great way for grandma and grandpa and everybody else to actually send money straight into Susie's AZ Able account. Susie can save that money and it won't affect her Medicaid, her SSI, or any of her other benefits. And because we want you to be nice and send thank yous out to grandma and everybody, we actually track all of the gift contributions for you, so that you know who is gifting, how much they gave, so that you can send thanks to grandma and grandpa later on. So I talked a little bit earlier about how these were not bank accounts, how these were technically investment accounts. So let me explain what that really means. So if any of you out there have like a 401k or a retirement account, these accounts will look a little bit more like that. What you do when you sign up is we offer 5 different buckets of investments that you can actually put your money into when you deposit money into your account. They're very simple kind of mutual funds, and they range in risk level from pretty aggressive, so for people that are thinking about having money in there over the long term, to very conservative, so people that are thinking about using this as more of a short-term spending tool. So we have 4 mutual fund options. Then we also have an FDIC insured option that's principal protected. This is our most popular option, so we have a lot of folks who have told us they're not really comfortable with mutual funds for whatever reason because they really do want to use this more like a checking account. And of course, they're worried mutual funds invest somewhat in the stock market, right? So your money can go up and down there. But if you put your money in the FDIC insured option, which we call our bank safe option, you can't lose money on that one. It is principal protected. So once you have money in your account, how can you spend that money? Are there restrictions? There are some restrictions on what you can use the money in your AZ Able account for, but the spending power is pretty broad. So we have this notion of withdrawals having to be used on what are called qualified disability expenses. This term is defined very, very broadly. So it's really anything that will relate to the person's disability and helps to improve their quality of life. So this can be basic living expenses, right? Groceries, pharmacy bills, it could be housing, it could be rent, it could be a mortgage payment, education, transportation, technology, caregiver assistance, travel, transportation, anything that really helps that person with their day-to-day living can be used. Able funds could be used for that. Okay, and I'm sorry, John, I just lost my screen. Sorry, everybody, just technical difficulties for a second.
Hold on one moment. It appears that someone maximized the screen, so I'm trying to get to minimizing it. If there was anyone out there that made that screen big, please. Thank you.
Okay, I got it back. Sorry about that. Small glitch. Okay. So that's what you can spend your money on. So now let me talk about what happens if you spend your money on something that's a non-qualified expenditure. So let me just stress that it's actually very hard for us to think of things that would fall into this category because the spending power is so broad. But something like a gift for somebody else would be considered a non-qualified expense. So if you wanted to go buy your mom a necklace, right, that's not going to be for the person with the disability. That would be considered a non-qualified expenditure. So just know that those types of things aren't illegal, but if you do that, there will be potential consequences. The biggest one is that before, if you spent your money on a qualified expense, the amount of that expenditure, that withdrawal, could not be a countable resource for you when you're thinking about benefits eligibility. But let's say you take $100 out of your account and you use it to buy a gift for someone that's non-qualified. That $100 may now be counted by a benefits agency. It could now be counted against you because since you used it for a non-qualified purpose, it's no longer shielded. There is also a tax penalty, a small tax penalty that you may have to pay on that. But just keep in mind the bigger issue for most people is going to be that it could potentially affect your benefits at that point. So let's talk about how to actually get money out of the account. How do you take the withdrawal? There are a couple different ways you can do this. You can actually transfer money electronically to an existing checking or savings account that you have. You can also write a check from our system. A lot of people use this feature sort of like a bill pay functionality. So if you need to pay your landlord rent every month or pay just ongoing bills monthly, you can tell us who you need that check sent to, and we will send the check out for you from our system every month, however you need that to go. The other great feature that we have is a debit card that's attached to these accounts. This is called the stable card. It is a prepaid loadable card, and we'll get into some more details on the next slide. But you can take out money from your AZAble account and load it onto your stable account, just like a regular debit card. Go to the grocery store, go to your doctor, whatever you need to do, and spend money that way. We do not charge any fees for taking money out. There are no limits on how many times you can withdraw money from your account. It's completely at your discretion, however often, however much you need to spend. Critical to know that AZAble was not going to ask questions about what you're spending on. So anytime you ask to take money out of your account, we're not going to require you to, type us a note to tell us what you want to do with the money. We're not going to ask you those types of questions. But just be aware that for compliance purposes, sometimes benefits agencies can ask those questions, and sometimes the IRS can ask those questions. So we always encourage people to keep good records of what you're spending your money on, even though it's kind of a maybe whether or not you'll ever get asked the question. We won't ask it, but other people might. So I want to talk a little bit more about the debit card option that we have. This is a great, one of the best things I think about our program that will really be great for Arizona families with disabilities, especially those, if you have a guardian that you take care of or a child or a loved one that you take care of, this is especially a great feature. So as I mentioned before, this is a loadable debit card. What that means is it's not going to pull money directly out of your Arizona Able account. You actually have to load the card first. So the way we built it is that let's say you have $10,000 in your AZAble account. You couldn't just go to the grocery store, swipe your stable card, and buy $10,000 worth of groceries. What you would have to do is go into your AZAble account, request to take out, let's say, $100, and load it onto your stable card. That way, when your loved one or you go to the grocery store, there's only $100 sitting on that card for use. We talked to a lot of parents, a lot of caregivers when we built this program, and they really stressed for us that that was critical for them, that they really wanted to be able to kind of manage the money a little bit, help help their loved ones budget. They didn't want people to be taken advantage of or maybe have access to too much money all at once. So of course, if that's not a concern for you, you can dump, you could dump $10,000 on there if you want and spend it at your leisure. But at least you have the ability to put smaller amounts on it if you want. We have also built this card so that you can log in and see every single transaction that you've made with the card. You can write your own specific notes on every transaction line, and you can categorize every single transaction as either a qualified or a non-qualified expense. So in case you ever do get asked by a benefits agency what you spent your money on and what it was for, you can actually go online, print out your history, and just turn it over. You have all your notes in one place, all your descriptions, all your categorizations. We really tried to build this feature because we know so many people have record-keeping responsibilities, and we wanted to make it easier for them. We built some other protection into these cards, so you can only get AZ-able money onto this card. So you know that it's only going to be that protected cash. You can't load the card with any other kind of money. We did turn off some types of merchants that we knew were going to be unqualified, so the card won't work at like online gambling sites or anything like that. There's no cash access with the card, so you can't go to an ATM and take cash out. That was a request that we got from a lot of families who were worried about people being taken advantage of or just cash not being able to be tracked very well. So we built in that protective feature, and there's no way to overdraft with the card. So you can't accidentally take out money and get hit with some fee. We don't even allow that at all, so you don't ever have to worry about that. You can also sign up for text alerts. So that will help you if you're monitoring somebody else's card and they're getting a low balance, or you just want to know, hey, they went to the grocery store and they just spent $20 on something. Our system will alert you if you want to sign up for those alerts so that you can kind of keep an eye on the spending behavior there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about benefits concerns. How does this program interact with different benefits programs that a lot of our folks use? So specifically for SSI, there is a balance limit. So if your AZ-able account balance is over $100,000, at that point, any money above $100,000 does start to count as a resource. So if you have, let's say, $101,000 in your AZ-able account, Social Security will say that you have $1,000 of countable resources because they ignore the first $100,000 but not anything after that. The good news is that if you go over your $100,000 balance, your SSI will just be suspended for that particular month. You're not kicked out of the program as a whole. So if that ever happens, you don't have to go through reapply for SSI, go through the whole eligibility process again. It will just be your benefits will turn off for that month, and then they will resume if your balance goes back under $100,000. Keep in mind that this is a SSI specific rule. It does not apply to Medicaid. So Medicaid does not care what your able account balance is. Your Medicaid benefits will never be affected regardless of what the balance is. The only caveat to SSI rules is that if you if you withdraw money from your AZ-able account and you hold on to that money from one calendar month to the next, and you use it for a housing expense, like you use it to pay rent or something else, then transferring that money over from one month to the next means that it can be counted as a resource. So SSI, Social Security, has this quirky little rule. So let me give you an example of how that would play out. Let's say on February 15th, you take out $500 to pay your rent, but you don't actually give it over to your landlord until March 5th. Because that money transferred over from February to March, now all of a sudden in the month of March, that $500 is going to be counted as a resource for SSI purposes. So please keep that in mind if you're planning on spending this for rent or other things. What we suggest is that people either use our check pay feature to pay their rent, so that way the money is never in their hand. They don't ever have to worry about it. Or you can always just make sure you pay your rent within one calendar month. The last SSI rule to be aware of is that AZ-able accounts are an asset resource shield, but they're not an income shield. So most benefits programs still have an income limit that you have to stay under. If you are a beneficiary of an account and you're working and you put your wages into the account, those wages are still going to count against your income limits, even if you're putting them in an AZ-able account. Once they get in the account, though, they're no longer counted as a resource, but they're still going to be counted as income. So we often get asked what happens if my loved one passes away and they have an AZ-able account. So let me take you through a little bit of how that looks. Typically, this account is just going to pass into your loved one's estate. Okay, so you can call us and notify us that your loved one has passed away, and we can turn over administration of the account to whoever is administering their estate. There isn't, unfortunately, a way to designate someone to transfer the account to if the loved one passes away, only because ownership of these accounts has to be very specific. It has to be only to a person with a disability. So you can't will it to a son or a daughter or something like that. So typically the accounts will just go through a normal estate probate process. These accounts are subject to what's called Medicaid payback rules. So if you or your loved one receives Medicaid right now, hopefully you're already familiar with this. This isn't something that's specific to AZ-able accounts. It's something that applies to all people that receive Medicaid benefits. But there are some specific rules of how this works in AZ-able. So if you were on Medicaid during your life and you pass away, Medicaid can come to your estate and ask to be paid back for some of the expenses that it paid for you during your lifetime. So again, this isn't specific to AZ-able. If you're receiving Medicaid, Medicaid can do this against your state regardless. Right? They can do this whether or not you have an AZ-able account. The good thing about having an AZ-able account is that Medicaid does not get the first bite at any remaining funds. Okay? If you have money left over in an AZ-able account when you pass away, your estate can actually use it first. So they can use the money to pay any bills, they can pay for your funeral and burial expenses, and then they can deduct, if your state has a Medicaid buy-in program, they can deduct any premiums you paid. Once your estate has done all of that, then if there's still money left over, Medicaid could ask for a payback. But typically families are able to use up all of the money left in their accounts, and they don't have to worry about that too much. Another limitation on Medicaid, if you have money left over in an AZ-able account, is that the amount Medicaid can ask for, the payback is only from the date your Arizona Able account was opened. So again, an example is helpful here, I think. If you had, let's say, surgery in 2010 and Medicaid paid $10,000 for it, you open your Able account today and then pass away sometime later, Medicaid cannot ask to be repaid for that $10,000 surgery from 2010 because you hadn't opened your Able account yet. Okay, so they can't ask for payback from the beginning of time. It is pretty limited. So keep in mind that even with this payback, money in your AZ-able account is still better protected from Medicaid payback than money that you would just have in any bank account. If you just had money left over in a bank account when you pass away, Medicaid can just come take all of that without you being able to spend anything first, and payback is going to be from the beginning of time. So even though folks can sometimes ask a lot of questions about this and get worried about it, just keep in mind that this is actually better than having money just in a regular bank account for when an account holder passes away. So a little bit about the fees for the program. There's a monthly fee of $3.50, and then we have an asset-based fee according to which investment options you choose. That fee is very small, so it's depending on where you put your money. One of our 5 investment options is between 0.19% and 0.33%. Another thing we typically get questions about is how do ABLE accounts interact with special needs trusts? Can I have both of them? Should I have both of them? And what we typically tell folks is that these are both good tools to have in your toolbox. So we see them as complementary, not competitive. But there are some unique benefits just to stable accounts under the AZ-able program. Stable accounts are going to be a lot more cost effective. Typically, special needs trusts can be thousands of dollars to set up, and then there are ongoing maintenance and legal fees that you'll have with that. Stable accounts, as you saw, are $42 a year, and then some small investment fees. So these can be a great tool, a more affordable tool for folks. They also offer more spending power than a special needs trust. So if you have a trust right now, you know that you cannot use that trust for housing or rent. That's not the case with AZ Able. With money that you put aside in AZ Able, you can use it for housing. You can pay your rent. You can pay mortgage without having to worry about it. You also have easier access to the account. So it's your account. It's in your name. You don't have to go to a court. You don't have to go to your trustee and ask for your money. You can wake up in the morning, right, and go right to the store, whatever you need, right to the doctor, and spend your money without having to ask permission every time. There are some tax benefits. There's no federal or state income tax on any earnings in the account. You don't have to file a separate tax return like you do with a special needs trust. And actually, there is a new federal tax credit that was just passed if an account owner is putting his or her own income into account. You could be eligible for the federal savers credit, which is a great new federal credit on the tax side for people. And finally, this account, as I said many times, it's established, it's owned, it's run by the person with a disability. Again, if you need it, you can have a parent or guardian helping you with it. But this is really meant to give someone the ability for that financial independence. The account is yours. You can use it how you want, and it can be in your name and your own savings. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information to throw at you guys. I wanted to give you some resources here, ongoing, so write these down if this is helpful to you. We have a wonderful customer service team that can answer any questions. If Monday, when the program launches, you're interested in signing up for an account, they can help you walk through that process. They could be on the phone with you while you're doing it and answer any questions. So their contact information is here. team@stableaccount.com is the email. Phone number is up there as well. And then you can always check the website for ongoing information. Wanted to share some of our social media, so you can find the program on Facebook through the DES Facebook and Twitter pages. So this is a great way to tell your friends and family and your loved ones about the program. Okay, John, that is it for me. I know I got through that with plenty of time to spare, so I'd be happy to take questions from the audience.
Thank you, Juliana. Let me make some adjustments on the screen so we'll be able to see all the questions. There was kind of a balance of questions in our Q&A chat pod and also, the Q&A pod and the chat pod, so try to extend those out. Not too sure, what do you think? Do you want to go down the list in the Q&A first, and I can read them out so we can catch it on captioning?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. First question from earlier in the presentation, it said, can you roll a 530 Coverdell over to an AZ Able account?
Okay, so good question. The answer is we don't know. So we can take money from anywhere, right? So that would be a restriction that your Coverdell would cover. So they would have to answer that question for you. Again, if it's money, we don't care what the source of it is, but your Coverdell might care what you're doing with that money. So you'd want to ask them. You can, I know for a fact, you can roll over, as of this year, you can roll over a 529 college savings account into an ABLE account without any tax penalties, but the Coverdell, you would need to check with them on what their restrictions are.
Thank you. I'm just going to go down this list, and this is a message to the participants. We are going to roll through our Q&A questions first. I'm pretty sure you're not able to see the list right now, and then from there we'll back into the chat area and see if there are any repeat questions and move down that list. So the next question from Zandra is, are we required to alert DDD when we open an ABLE account?
So we don't require you to alert anyone, but that would be kind of managed by that specific agency. So you'd want to ask DDD what their requirements are. We, just as a best practice, we typically tell folks always a good idea to disclose that you have it. I don't think it's necessary to call them right on the day you open the account and let them know. But during any normal kind of reporting process that you have with them, so if that's monthly or yearly, we do always say, again, just to be safe, you should disclose the fact that you have the ABLE account, maybe how much money you have in it, but remind them that it's not countable. So sometimes they just like to know about it as an FYI, so they're not surprised, but they're not allowed to consider it if they do see it, in any of your reporting.
Thank you. Moving on, Lindsay asks, can a family have a family trust and include that AZ ABLE account, or are families going to be forced to do a special needs trust if their loved one has an AZ ABLE account?
So the AZ ABLE account won't affect what you want to do with your trust. They would be two separate things. So I don't believe you can put an ABLE account into a trust, although you need to probably check with your attorney on that. I am not a probate attorney, so I don't want to lead you astray there. But we have plenty of folks who do them in tandem. So they have a special needs trust and they have an ABLE account. There's nothing about having an ABLE account that requires you to have a special needs trust versus any other type of trust. You can add an ABLE account onto any existing financial product or trust that you have today.
Thank you. If I ask a question that has already been answered within the content, please tell me and we can move on. Next question, what happens when the individual is deceased? Money goes back to the state and Arizona gets reimbursed for Medicaid, right?
Yeah, great question. So that's one of the slides that I went over towards the end of the presentation. But just to recap,
Okay.
it's not an automatic money goes back to the state kind of thing. The family is allowed to look at the remaining funds and see if they have outstanding expenses that they'd like to pay for first. So Medicaid doesn't just swoop in and take it all. You're allowed to pay for your loved one's funeral, burial, any outstanding bills. At that point, like I said, if there's money still left over, then Medicaid can come. And again, there are lots of restrictions on this, so it doesn't even apply to everyone. It depends on how old you are, et cetera, whether or not Medicaid can even come and make a claim against your account. But it's possible, so we like to alert people to that. But it would only be whatever's remaining after the family is finished paying off some of those expenses.
Thank you. Next question in sequence. What are the fees to set up an AZ ABLE account, and could those be taken from the existing 530 Coverdell?
So
Oh, I'm sorry. I think. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I can't speak to whether or not you could use Coverdell for anything here. You'd have to ask the Coverdell about that. But the fees are what I mentioned in the presentation. So $3.50 a month, and that just comes straight out of your account balance. And then there are some small investment fees depending on what investments you choose to make. But there's no additional fee to open the account, right? We don't charge you $20 just to set it up. It's free.
Thank you. Next in sequence, who will be able to view the balance in that account? Just the names of the individual custodial guardian and DES, not DDD, right?
Actually, it's not even DES or DDD. This is, again, think of it, you own this account, right? So it's just going to be the person whose account it is, or their guardian if they have a guardian acting as their legal representative. If you choose to share that information, your account balance with anybody, that's totally up to you. You can print off easy statements and share it if you need to share it with agencies, but yeah, nobody from the state can look at this account on their own. You would have to actually share the information with them.
Thank you. Next question, is the principal protected account a fixed interest account?
It is not. It's variable. So I think in January, it was earning somewhere around like 0.60%. So it's going to be better than you would typically see with just a savings account. But it's not a stock account, so it's not going to be 10% or anything like that. But it does have earnings, but they do fluctuate.
Thank you. It looks like we're about halfway through the Q&A pod, so we'll continue here. Can you pull out of Vanguard Mutual and then switch to FDIC insured option?
Yes, you can. So the law lets you switch your money from one bucket to another bucket twice every 12 months. So twice a year, you can change your investments from a mutual fund to the FDIC insured or vice versa. But every time, so that's for existing money that you already have in there. But every time that you make a new contribution, you can tell us what bucket you want that money to go into. So every time you send a check or do an electronic transfer, you can choose a new bucket at that time.
Thank you. Next, can my loved one with a disability have a personal checking account as long as the balance is under 2K, as well as an ABLE account? I want him to be able to have access to cash if he needs it.
Sure, absolutely. You can, like I said, you can add an AZ-ABLE account onto any existing accounts. This is not, having an ABLE account doesn't exclude you from having any other type of account. But I did mention, obviously, our debit card feature. So if you do want your loved one to have cash access, you can still use your ABLE account for that.
Excellent. On that note, can you load the debit card each month automatically?
No, we can't do automatic loads, but you can do automatic contributions, just not automatic withdrawals at this time.
All right. Next question. What if you put rent funds onto your ABLE debit card on 2/25 and pay the landlord on 3/2?
Yeah, so that would be considered one of those quirky SSI issues. You would, even if you put it on your debit card, you still want to pay your landlord by the end of February, right? By the end of that month. You wouldn't want to leave it on your debit card across a calendar month.
Okay. Next question. If you lose eligibility to Social Security, can you still qualify?
Yes, although it may be, it depends, I guess, why you lose eligibility for Social Security, but the process, the Social Security eligibility process and the ABLE eligibility process are completely distinct. So you don't have to be receiving any kind of Social Security benefits in order to open an ABLE account. So you may or may not be eligible for SSI. It doesn't really matter. You can still open an Arizona ABLE account as long as you meet the Arizona ABLE requirements.
Excellent. Next question. What happens when you open an ABLE account here and decide to move to another state later?
So you can do that, although it would break my heart. But there's no fee for that. Some people, obviously, people move, right? So if you're going to move to a different state and you want to take your account to that state, you're free to do that. You would just roll it over to that other state's program.
Thanks again. Next question. Can funds be spent to remodel a DD person's group homeroom?
Yes, absolutely. We have actually a number of people that we've talked to who have used this for housing renovations. That's definitely a qualified expense that you can use these funds for.
Next in sequence, is there a minimum balance requirement for the account?
No, there is not. We do not have a minimum balance.
Okay. Next, is interest on the account counted towards the annual limit?
No, it is not. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, you can put $15,000 worth of contributions in your account, but your account balance may actually be $15,500 because you've accrued that interest. That is completely fine. the only thing that counts towards that $15,000 limit is the actual money you're contributing, not any interest that it earns.
Okay. Next one is set up a 529 for a young child who became disabled at age 10 from an accident. Can a parent open able account and roll over 529 while child is under 18, or wait and do that after 18?
Yeah, either. Yeah, as of this year, the law just changed to allow those rollovers. So you can do it now. You can do it when the child's 18. Whenever is best for you, you can roll it over.
Thank you. Next in the Q&A pod, is this account in addition to member funds or in lieu of?
I'm not sure I can answer that question. I'm not sure I know what they mean by what's meant by member funds. If you mean who can contribute to the account, it's anybody. But I don't know if member funds is something, a specific term. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry.
No problem. Maybe that individual can clarify in another question. Last question in the Q&A pod, and then we'll move over to the chat pod, is can you have your SSI deposited directly to an ABLE account?
You can't do direct deposit. The Social Security direct deposit forms require specific types of bank accounts, and this is an investment account. But we do have a workaround for that. So what you can do is you can have your SSI directly deposited into a bank account, and then you can set up a recurring contribution in our system so that let's say your SSI comes in on the 5th of the month. You can link into a bank account, let's say. You can link that bank account up to your AZ Able account and have your AZ Able account take money out of your bank account, on the 6th of the month every time. So there, you kind of have to put a step in the middle there, but you direct deposit in your bank account and then automatic push to your Able account the day after your SSI comes in every day.
Thank you. And it seems like the prior question, you can see in the chat, member funds meaning client funds. I don't know if that clears anything up, but does that help with that question?
Oh, maybe. So maybe they are talking about the client's own funds. It can be anything, right? So you can put the client's own funds. The individual with a disability, their own funds can go in there. Mom can gift, grandma can gift. So we don't have any restrictions in terms of whose funds can go into the account.
Thank you. So we have a wall of chat here, and want to try to not repeat questions. So if it is a repeat, please tell me right away, Juliana. I'm starting up at the top. Did the chat reset up to the top for you, Juliana? Can you see the uppermost start of the chat?
I think so. Yeah, I have the window here.
Okay. So I am moving down past Lindsay V2 and going to, can I have a family trust with an AZ Able account? Was that asked already?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to move down to Ren Sessions, and it says, my daughter has an ABLE account in another state. That was asked as well, right?
I think the reverse was asked, but so for Bren, yes, if you already have an ABLE account in another state, unless it's with Ohio. So if you already opened a stable account in Ohio, we are automatically transferring all those to AZ Able because of our partnership. So you don't have to do anything. But if you have an ABLE account in a completely different state, then yes, you just contact that program and you can roll those funds right over into AZ Able.
All right. Seems like the Lindsay V2 $100,000 balance impacts Medicaid, right? Was in response to something you said in the presentation.
Yeah, so no, your $100,000 $100,000 balance does not impact Medicaid. That $100,000 balance issue is just an SSI quirk. It will not affect Medicaid at all.
And the next one from Lindsay, the state takes over the account on individual being deceased?
Yeah, so I think we did answer that. So no, the state doesn't just take over the account. It still, it still goes into the person's estate like a regular bank account would. It's just whether or not if there's money left over after the family is able to use the account, then Medicaid could come ask for some payback.
Okay. Rebecca asks, when will the additional $12,060 clause take effect?
So it's in effect now. This happened with the tax reform legislation that just happened at the end of December. So we are just getting our system caught up to be able to accept this additional money. So you will be able to contribute that in the 2018 tax year. We're just still building it in our system, which we should have it completed within the next couple months and be able to take that money. But you'll still be able to make those contributions in this tax year.
Thank you. And my apologies if I'm asking questions that are already covered. Can ABLE Act funds be used for basic living expenses, example, haircut?
Yes, yes, they absolutely can, and that's what we see most of our folks using the money for.
And then Edward Myers asks, it seems like, where do I sign up? That might be, okay.
So it's all online. Yeah, you just go, as of Monday morning, you can go to az-able.com. Just click open an account button, and it'll take you right to our enrollment screen.
Okay, and I think this was asked earlier, but it was, this one seems a little bit more specific to the amount. Can an individual have an AZ-able account as well as a checking account as long as the checking account is under 2K, or is it one or the other?
Yeah, I think we addressed that, but it's not one or the other. You can have both.
Okay. And next question, can SSI go as a direct deposit into this account?
Yeah, so we answered that one already too.
Okay, all right. The alerting DDD was answered. How will this affect supplement insurance once account is opened?
So it will not affect SSI unless your balance goes over $100,000. At that time, like the details are in the presentation, but your SSI will be fine. It won't affect eligibility at all unless you have more than $100,000 in your account.
Okay. Next question in the chat. Can someone in a different state open an account here if they are not living here?
No, they can't. So this is only for Arizona residents. But if you do have a loved one in another state, they're a resident of another state, they can go through the national program, which is just stapleaccount.com, and open an account that way.
Okay. If DDD is the rep payee, who should initiate this process?
So we talked about a little bit in the presentation about how if the individual with a disability is not going to be managing their own account, then you have to have what's called an authorized legal representative do it for them. Unfortunately, the law does not allow rep payees to act as an authorized legal representative unless the rep payee has signs a power of or has a power of attorney form signed, allowing them to manage the AZ-able account. So it could be anyone, at DDD. Maybe if there's a case manager or a worker who's managing several people, you can open accounts for multiple people under one login. That's no problem. We have lots of institutions that do that. But you have to have more authority than just being a rep payee. You would have to be a guardian, a parent, or have a power of attorney form signed.
Thank you. This seems to be a question about something you presented. What about AZ-able with just a family trust?
So you can do that too. Again, you can add the AZ Able account onto any existing trusts or accounts that you have.
Thank you. Scrolling down, it seems like people are requesting the transcript, so I just want to announce to everyone, you should receive an email after the webinar, I think within the day, and I'll try to put a download link for that transcript. But before, if we get through some questions, but before we leave the webinar, I'll try to download the transcript and then add it to the files pod. So if you wanted that right away, you can just hang on to the, don't exit the webinar, and I'll try to put it up there as quickly as possible as soon as the conversation has stopped. So we'll continue on. Linda asks, does this eliminate the need for a special needs trust?
For some people it might, but overall no. For a lot of people, if you have less than $15,000 that you want to be saving every year, it's a great tool. You may not need a special needs trust, but for folks that maybe you will be getting a large settlement or a large inheritance, or you have a large amount of savings, more than $15,000 or more than $27,000 if you're working, you won't be able to put all of that into an AZ Able account because of the annual restrictions. So if you do have more than $15,000, a lot of people will put their first $15,000 into an ABLE account and the rest of it into a special needs trust. So you can use them together like that.
Thank you. I'm scrolling down here, and seems like there's some repeat questions. I don't want to skip anyone, though. Let's see. Regarding new contributions to different Vanguard or FDIC accounts, are you saying that we can divide the account into different MFs?
Into different mutual funds? Yes, absolutely. So you can tell us that you want 50% of your contribution to go to, an aggressive mutual fund and 25% into a conservative mutual fund, and then the other 25% into our FDIC insured account. You can divide it however you want.
Thank you. Next question. Is there any difference with how this works for individuals that were on SSI and are now on survivors?
No, it shouldn't. I'm not completely familiar with survivors, how that benefit works. But it doesn't really matter. You don't, like I said before, you don't have to be on SSI in order to open this account. As long as you meet the AZ Able requirements, it doesn't really matter what other benefits programs you participate in. As long as you're eligible for this program, you can have this.
Thank you. Seems like a scenario here. 76-year-old disabled sister applying for housing subsidized by a federal low-income program. App has to be approved by federal compliance service. Will ABLE account be excluded as an asset?
Yes,
or excluded as income? Sorry.
It will be excluded as an asset. It wouldn't be money in your account wouldn't be income anyway, but it will not be counted as an asset. So we always tell people, if you run into a problem with this, since this is a new program, there is always a chance that whoever you're applying to has not heard about it yet, right? That's what we're out here doing, trying to educate everybody. So if you run into an issue like that, please call us. We are more than happy. We go to bat for people anytime that becomes a problem. They should not count it, but again, if you run into somebody who has never heard of this and they start talking like they're going to count it, call us, and we'll be more than happy to get the right people involved.
Thank you. Next is a question. We are organizations serving people with disabilities. Do you have a small one-page FAQ document that we can share with our members?
We do. So actually on the AZ Able website, again, az-able.com, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, there's a resources tab, and we have a bunch of good PDFs there that you can pull. So there's a large brochure, there's like a smaller little card brochure, that you can download, and we do have an FAQ page on the website that you could print off as well.
Thank you, and I just copy pasted that to the chat. Karen asks, is Arizona offering a tax credit for deposits into an AZ-able account?
No, the Arizona state does not have a credit or a deduction, but contributions made by the individual, him or herself, could be eligible for the federal savers credit.
Okay. Next, how many states currently have ABLE accounts?
I believe we are up to almost 30 some states now. So not everybody, but most of the country has opened a program at this point.
Okay, and continuation on that, is there a website where we can compare all available ABLE options?
Yes, there's a really great website. It's called the ABLE National Resource Center. I believe the URL is ablenrc.org. Don't quote me on that, but you can Google it. Yeah, ABLE National Resource Center. They have a comparison tool where you can select a couple different programs and compare the stats across the program.
All right, I put that into the chat area. Oh, there it is up at the top. Thomas has placed it inside the chat area. Let's see. Georgia asks, person has small pooled trust account in another state. Trustee is state government agency. We want to have trustee transfer funds to ABLE account. Has anyone else done this? Trustee is being difficult about doing this.
Yeah, so not surprised to hear that. This is a new thing. People can be nervous about that, but yes, you can tell them. We personally actually work with a lot of attorneys here who, as a matter of course, are taking money from their trust, whether it's special needs trust, a pool trust, and transferring it into an ABLE account. A lot of them because they want to be able to spend the money on housing. And we also have a lot of attorneys who, if they're setting up a trust for the first time, let's say they have a $50,000 inheritance, what they will do is they'll put the first $15,000 straight into an ABLE account and the rest into some kind of trust. So yes, that kind of transfer is going on right now. There's no actual problem with it. If the trustee is nervous or worried about that, please have them reach out to us. We can help them through that process.
Thank you again. Almost at the end of our questions here in the chat pod and at the end of this webinar. We'll ask the rest of the questions to roll over from another account. We will need to open AZ-able and then initiate the rollover. Is there a time limit to get the funds transferred since 2 accounts will be in effect during the transition?
Yeah, you have 60 days. So you will need to open AZ-able, and then once you get the check from the other program, you'll have 60 days to actually deposit it into AZ.
Thank you. Gregory asks, how will this affect someone who is on Access?
So I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Arizona-specific programs, but so I probably can't give you too much detail. But if I'm assuming this is a type of kind of means-tested benefits program, if that is the case, then ABLE will work the way it does with any other benefits program. You can put money into your ABLE account and it won't affect eligibility for that AHCCCS.
Thank you. Deborah asks, does being a parent, oh wait, was that answered already? Does being a parent of an adult person with a disability require POA, or is being a parent enough to manage, open, and manage the account?
Yeah, being a parent is enough. Now, we always tell, at least from our standpoint, we do tell people that there may be, if you have a guardianship order from a court, because your son or daughter is an adult at this point, you always want to make sure that you're reading your guardianship order or your court order and making sure that the court isn't requiring any other things of you or isn't restricting your ability to manage finances for your person. So it's enough for us, right? Being a parent is all we require, but just make sure you're still being compliant with any court orders that you might.
Thank you. And we are at the last question here. Will all the features of Stable Ohio account be included in AZ Able account?
Yep, absolutely. You will see the same kind of underlying account. All the features are the same. The benefit is, so if you have a Stable Ohio account right now, we are transferring those over to AZ Able. Everything will stay the same. Your fees will just be lower. So it is a better benefit for Arizona residents right now.
Thank you. We answered the last question in the Q&A pod. Thomas put the answer to Camber. I hope that you see that, Camber. And I think we're at the end of the webinar here, unless there's any other questions that show up in the chat area. Maybe we should just wait a moment, see if there's anything else. If not, thank you very much, Juliana. Great presentation.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Please feel free to use the contact information. Get in touch if you have other questions. And we look forward to seeing people on Monday when the program launches. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And just as the last announcement, I'm going to go to the website and download the transcripts as soon as this conversation is uploaded, and I'll put it into the files pod in the lower left of your screen. So prior to you leaving, if you wanted the transcript, it'll be available there. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We look forward to our official launch on Monday, and feel free to reach out to the council for any additional questions, as well as az-able.com and the Stable website customer service team, of course, who will be going through a lot of the operations questions. Thank you for participating. Please share once we send out the link to the recorded webinar. Please share with your friends and your colleagues. We know there's been a lot of interest, and we want to get this information out into the hands of as many people as possible. Just like we mentioned earlier, if you are encountering problems with benefits counselors who have never heard of ABLE, or who are putting up resistance to learning more, feel free to reach out to the council or the Stable customer service team. When we send out the follow-up email, we'll make sure to include that contact info. We want to make sure that as many people are educated as possible. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to the Ohio team. Thank you, John. I hope everyone has a great day.